In the heart of Stark County, Ohio, lies Massillon, a small, unassuming town where life moves slowly, and neighbors know each other by name. It's the kind of place where you'd expect nothing more than the hum of daily routines: kids riding bikes, families gathering for Sunday dinners, and elderly couples enjoying their golden years in peace. But for Bill and Dorothy Wacker, a quiet, retired couple who called Massillon home for over 4 decades, their idyllic life became a living nightmare. For nearly 10 years, they were tormented by an unseen predator, a stalker who seemed to know their every move and was always able to somehow evade the police. Who was this phantom? Why did they target an ordinary couple with no enemies? And perhaps most chillingly, was the threat closer to home than anyone realized? This is the story of Bill and Dorothy Wacker. What started as a simple gesture spiraled into a stalking case so extreme and persistent that it would push this elderly couple to their breaking point and expose shocking failures in the system designed to protect victims. In this episode, we're diving deep into the darkness to uncover the truth, or at least, what little of it we can grasp.
In any type of criminal activity, usually you can identify pretty much up front what the motive is. It's pretty simple.
But before we dive in, some of the details in this story are disturbing and may not be suitable for all audiences, so viewer discretion is strongly advised. As always, remember to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on post notifications to stay up to date with the channel. Alright, let's dive into the video.
The problem with this is you cannot identify the motive. You can't identify the reason.
William Lewis Wacker, known to everyone as Bill, was born on March 12, 1920, in Massillon, Ohio. A proud veteran, he served as a private first class in the United States Army during World War II, a testament to his quiet strength and dedication. His wife, Dorothy Jean Wacker, born April 21, 1927, was his partner in life for over 48 years. Together, they built a modest but fulfilling existence in a small house on Worcester Street Northwest, a place they'd called home for decades. By all accounts, the Wackers were the epitome of ordinary, kind, reserved, and well-liked by their community. They didn't seek attention, didn't stir trouble, and had no known enemies. Their life was one of routine: Bill tinkering in the garage, Dorothy tending to the home, and both enjoying the company of their daughter, Kathy, and their extended family. But in 1984, something changed. The Wackers' peaceful existence was shattered by a series of events that would spiral into a decade of terror. It began subtly, almost innocently, but it would soon escalate into something far more sinister.
And it just looked like this stuff was laid around till it was brought back.
The first incident occurred in 1984, though the exact date is unclear. Bill and Dorothy returned home to find their house ransacked. Drawers were pulled open, furniture was overturned, and personal belongings were strewn across the floor. Nothing of significant value appeared to be stolen, which made the intrusion all the more baffling. It was as if someone had broken in just to disrupt their lives. The Wackers, shaken but practical, didn't immediately report the incident to the police. Perhaps they chalked it up to a one-off act of vandalism, a prank by local kids, or a mistake. But when it happened again later that year, the unease began to settle in. By January 16, 1985, the Wackers could no longer ignore the pattern. Their home was ransacked for a third time, and this time, Bill called the Stark County Sheriff's Department. The police investigated, but found no fingerprints, no forced entry, and no witnesses. The lack of evidence was frustrating, but it was only the beginning. The intrusions were about to take a darker turn. In July 1985, Dorothy was home alone, recovering from recent heart surgery. She was vulnerable, still weak from the procedure, when she heard a knock at the door. A man described as being in his mid-20s with blonde hair and blue eyes stood on her porch. He claimed his car had broken down and asked to use the phone. Dorothy, trusting and kind-hearted, let him in. He made a call, said goodbye, and appeared to leave. But he didn't. According to Dorothy, the man struck her on the head, knocking her unconscious. When she came to, she was bound and gagged on the kitchen floor, her hands tied and a cloth stuffed in her mouth. Terrified but determined, she managed to crawl to an open window and scream for help. Neighbors heard her cries and called emergency services. Dorothy was shaken but not seriously injured. When Bill returned home, he discovered that several items were missing: a .22 caliber revolver, an antique watch, a video camera, and a radio scanner. Most bizarrely, the intruder had scrawled a message in crayon on the dining room wall.
Cheaper, but will do.
The message was cryptic, taunting, and deeply unsettling. What did it mean? Was it a jab at the Wackers' modest lifestyle? A threat of worse to come? The police were stumped. The description Dorothy provided of the attacker, mid-20s, blonde, blue-eyed, about 5 feet 9 inches, was detailed but led nowhere. No one in the neighborhood had seen anyone matching that description, and the stolen items seemed random, almost personal. But the strangest twist was yet to come. 4 months later, in November 1985, Bill found the stolen revolver on their front porch, wrapped in a plastic shopping bag. Over the next few months, the other stolen items, the watch, the camera, the scanner, were quietly returned in similar fashion, left on the porch or near the property. Why would a thief go to the trouble of stealing these items only to return them? It was as if the perpetrator wanted to toy with the Wackers, to keep them on edge, to remind them that they were being watched.
Steal something, normally they're going to, if they don't have any use for it, they're going to sell it to somebody else.
The physical intrusions were only the beginning. Soon the Wackers began receiving phone calls, sometimes threatening, sometimes just heavy breathing. The callers seemed to know intimate details about their lives, taunting them with personal references. Bill and Dorothy changed their phone number multiple times, but the calls kept coming. How was the stalker getting their new, unlisted numbers? It suggested either a breach of privacy or someone close enough to have access to their personal information. The harassment escalated further. After dark, the Wackers would hear loud banging on the walls of their house, like someone was pounding with a fist or a tool. When they checked outside, they found nothing. No footprints, no signs of disturbance. They installed a security light to deter the intruder, but it was met with mockery. One morning, they found a note on their porch.
Your lights are a laugh. Asterisk.
The notes became a hallmark of the harassment, always written in a jagged, uneven scrawl, as if the writer was using their non-dominant hand to disguise their identity. No fingerprints were ever found. The notes were taunting, personal, and relentless. They appeared sporadically, sometimes weeks or months apart, keeping the Wackers in a constant state of fear. The police increased patrols around the Wacker home, but the stalker was like a ghost, always one step ahead. Then, on October 27, 1993, the harassment took a violent turn. Dorothy was attacked again, this time with far greater brutality. She was struck on the head, suffering a concussion and skull lacerations that required hospitalization. The attack was swift, and once again, the perpetrator vanished without a trace. The police searched the neighborhood, questioned residents, but found no clues, no witnesses. The lack of evidence was maddening, and it led to a shocking theory. Before we continue on, if you are enjoying the video so far, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you don't like it, let me know down in the comments. Your support truly means everything. All right, back to the video.
He said, I don't want you to take it the wrong way. He says, do you think your husband could have done this? And I said, no way.
After the second attack on Dorothy, the police began to suspect Bill Wacker himself. The theory was controversial, but not unfounded. Dorothy was the only one who had been physically harmed, and the stalker seemed to know too much about their lives, details that only someone close to them could know. Bill and Dorothy vehemently denied the accusation, insisting they were both victims. But the seed of doubt was planted, and it lingered in the minds of investigators and the community. The idea that Bill could be behind the harassment raised uncomfortable questions. Was he tormenting his own wife for some unknown reason? Was it a case of domestic abuse disguised as a mystery? Or were the Wackers, as some speculated, fabricating the entire ordeal for attention? The lack of physical evidence, no fingerprints, no DNA, no witnesses, made it impossible to rule out any theory. But Bill wasn't ready to let the harassment continue unchecked. In November 1993, Bill decided to take matters into his own hands. He organized a stakeout with the help of family members. The plan was simple, but desperate. Split into 3 groups to watch the house from different vantage points. Bill hid in a trailer in the driveway armed with a 2-way radio. 2 sons-in-law watched from a van across the street. Dorothy and their daughter, Kathy, stayed inside the house, ready to signal if anything happened. For 4 hours, they waited in the cold November night, eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of the stalker. At 10:30 p.m., with no activity, they called off the stakeout and retreated inside. But just as Bill and Dorothy settled into bed, they were jolted awake by loud thumping on the front porch. Bill rushed outside, heart pounding, only to find a note.
Get the message. Asterisk.
Once again, the stalker had slipped through their fingers, mocking their efforts. The stakeout was a failure, but it underscored the stalker's audacity. How did they know the exact moment the family had let their guard down? Were they watching the house the entire time, waiting for the perfect opportunity? Or was the truth even stranger?
Why should I do something like that after being married 48 years, you know?
The Wacker case aired on the TV show Unsolved Mysteries on May 25, 1994, bringing national attention to their plight. But despite the publicity, no new leads emerged. The harassment reportedly stopped after 1993, though it's unclear if this was due to the stalker moving on or the increased scrutiny from the show. Bill passed away in 1999 at age 79, and Dorothy followed in 2010 at age 83. The case remains unsolved, leaving behind a tangle of questions and theories. Let's explore the most prominent ones. The first theory is the most straightforward. The Wackers were targeted by a random individual, possibly a disturbed person who derived pleasure from terrorizing them. Massillon, while not rural, was a small enough community that a stranger could blend in, especially at night. The stalker's knowledge of the Wackers' phone numbers and routines could be explained by social engineering. Perhaps they went through the couple's trash or manipulated someone close to them to get information. The return of the stolen items and the cryptic notes suggest a psychological game, a hallmark of obsessive stalkers like the East Area rapist, who tormented victims with similar tactics. But why the Wackers? They had no public profile, no wealth, no apparent reason to be targeted. Another theory points to someone closer to home, a neighbor, friend, or even a relative. The stalker's ability to evade detection and their intimate knowledge of the Wackers' lives suggests someone familiar with their habits. The notes written in a disguised hand could indicate someone who feared being recognized. Some have speculated that a neighbor with a grudge, perhaps over a property dispute or a perceived slight, could have orchestrated the campaign. There's even an unconfirmed rumor that the Wackers were holdouts against a developer who wanted their land, though no evidence supports this. The personal nature of the harassment, from the taunting notes to the targeted attacks on Dorothy, feels like the work of someone with a vendetta. The most controversial theory is that Bill Wacker himself was the perpetrator. The police leaned into this idea after the second attack on Dorothy, noting that she was the only one physically harmed and that the stalker seemed to know details only Bill could. Some have suggested domestic abuse, with Bill staging the harassment to torment Dorothy or cover up his actions. Others propose a psychological condition, like Munchausen syndrome by proxy, where Bill craved attention or control. But this theory has holes. Dorothy denied Bill's involvement, and their daughter Kathy stood by them both. If Bill was the stalker, why did the harassment stop in 1993, years before his death? And why would he involve family in a stakeout if he was orchestrating it? Perhaps the most cynical theory is that the entire ordeal was a hoax, perpetrated by Bill, Dorothy, or both. Some online sleuths point to cases like Ruth Finley, who staged her own stalking in the 1970s, or the 2014 Wacker case in New Jersey, where a family fabricated threatening letters. The Wackers' story has elements that raise eyebrows: the lack of physical evidence, the return of stolen items, and Dorothy being the sole witness to the attacker. Could they have craved attention, perhaps after the initial break-ins garnered sympathy? Some speculate a shared delusion, or folie à deux, where both Wackers fed into a fabricated narrative. But this theory struggles to explain the physical injuries Dorothy sustained, particularly the 1993 attack that required hospitalization. Self-inflicted wounds are possible, but would an elderly couple go to such lengths for a decade? There's one final theory floated in online forums that's both intriguing and unverified. Some claim a man who moved from London to the US at age 16 confessed to the stalking in a suicide note, providing details only the perpetrator would know. Allegedly, this was uncovered through FOIA requests, but no credible source confirms it. The story feels like an internet legend, a convenient resolution to a mystery that refuses to be solved.
As far as all this harassment is going on, which to me it looks like it's trying to force us to move.
Bill and Dorothy Wacker lived out their final years in the shadow of this mystery. After Bill's death in 1999, there's no definitive record of whether the harassment continued for Dorothy. Some family members, including a great-niece who posted on Reddit in 2020, have insisted the case was real and not a hoax, citing the couple's genuine fear and the involvement of their daughter, Kathy. In a 2022 podcast, a woman named Peggy, identified as the Wacker's daughter, provided additional details, though the specifics remain private. What we do know is that the Wackers never found peace, and their tormentor was never caught. The Wacker case lingers in the true crime community because it defies easy answers. Was it a sadistic stranger, a vengeful acquaintance, or something closer to home? The lack of evidence fuels speculation, but it also highlights a chilling reality. Sometimes the truth is as elusive as whatever it was that stalked Bill and Dorothy.
Why should I move? Why should we move? Why should we be forced out by a kook?
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, then check out these videos on the screen now. If you have a topic suggestion, please send it to the email in the description. And as always, remember to like, share the video, and subscribe to our channel. And remember, the only thing scarier than this story is missing out on our next video.